Please pretend we're together. She begged a stranger who turned out to be a CEO, not realizing how much it would change both their lives. They say every lie starts small, but some lies, the ones told protect your heart, have a way of turning into something much, much bigger. Maya Reynolds was running late. Again, one hand clutching a coffee cup, the other balancing a roll of blueprints almost taller than she was. Her life in one messy frame. Caffeine, deadlines, and a dream she was barely keeping alive. Her phone buzzed. "Oh no," she muttered breathless. "If it's my boss again." But it wasn't. Her best friend's voice blasted through the speaker. "Maya, you need to get here. Now. Your ex, Ryan, he's here. At the engagement dinner. With her." Maya froze mid-step. The city seemed to slow around her. No, that's tonight. Yes. Sarah almost yelled. "He's early, and everyone's asking about you. Your mom still thinks you're bringing him. Please tell me you have a plan." She didn't. She hadn't had a plan since the day Ryan walked out of her apartment and left her with a promise that he needed to figure himself out. 2 months later, he'd figure out he wanted someone richer. "Oh, God," Maya whispered to herself. "They still think we're together. I can't, not tonight, not with everyone there." She took a shaky breath, scanning the busy street. Pride is a funny thing. It doesn't scream or shout. It just whispers. Don't let them see you break. Then a collision. Coffee splashed. Paper scattered. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," she blurted, kneeling to gather the mess. "I wasn't looking, are you?" "It's fine." A man's voice said, calm and even. "No harm done." He stood there, tall, composed, the kind of man who made the chaos around him seem like it belonged there. Gray suit, dark eyes, a quiet sort of power. He should have been angry. Instead, he just watched her. "I can pay for the dry cleaning, or something," Maya stammered. My day's been," she stopped, staring at the spreading stain on his pants. "You know what? I'll just go. I'm sorry." He tilted his head slightly, a trace of amusement in his tone. "You always run this fast, or is today special?" "It's a special kind of disaster," she said, half laughing, half on the verge of tears. That's when it hit her. The words. The stupid, desperate idea that came out before she could stop it. "Wait," she blurted. He turned back, curious. "Can you just pretend we're together?" Silence. Even the city seemed to pause. "I'm sorry," he said slowly. "What?" "Just tonight." Maya rushed out. "One dinner. My family thinks I'm still with my ex, and he's going to be there, and I swear I'll pay you or buy you dinner or something. I don't care, please." Her voice broke on that last word. Please. For a long moment, he said nothing. Most people would have walked away. But something about her, the panic in her voice, the ache behind her eyes, made him stop. "In your words," he said finally, "just for tonight?" She nodded quickly. "Yes, just tonight." He smiled, not big, not wide, just enough to make her heart slow down. "All right," he said softly, "just tonight." He extended a hand. She hesitated, then took it. His handshake was warm, steady, like he'd done this before, saved strangers from their own messy lives. "I'm Ethan," he said. "Maya." She breathed out, half in disbelief. "Maya Reynolds." Then Maya Reynolds, he said, his voice low and certain. "Let's go make your ex regret it." She didn't know his name would one day change everything. She didn't know the man she just begged to be her fake boyfriend was the last person in the world she should have asked. All she knew was that for the first time in months, she wasn't alone. The restaurant glittered with gold chandeliers and laughter. It wasn't just a dinner, it was a performance. Maya stood at the entrance, one breath away from bolting, until she felt a steady warmth at her side. Ethan, he looked calm, effortless, like this entire thing, the fake boyfriend act, the family dinner, was just another business meeting he was about to win. "You ready?" he asked quietly, offering his arm. "No," she whispered back, "but let's pretend I am." He smiled faintly. "You're better at pretending than you think." They stepped inside. The sound hit her like a wave, chatter, clinking glasses, her mother's voice calling her name. And then silence. Heads turned. Her mother's face lit up. "Maya, finally," Mrs. Reynolds gushed, hurrying over with open arms. "And you must be." She looked at Ethan, who greeted her with the kind of smooth charm that made people forget how to breathe. "Ethan," he said, shaking her hand warmly. "It's wonderful to meet you, Mrs. Reynolds." Her mother practically melted. "So polite, so handsome. Maya, why didn't you bring him sooner?" Maya laughed awkwardly, her heart racing. "Traffic, you know?" Ethan leaned down slightly, murmuring so only she could hear. "You're doing great." She wanted to say thank you, but the words got tangled somewhere between panic and disbelief. He wasn't supposed to be this good at it. Her father was next. Stern eyes, thick mustache, the kind of man who could make any suitor sweat just by crossing his arms. "So, Ethan," he said, voice firm, "what do you do for a living?" "I manage investments," Ethan replied easily, not missing a beat. Maya almost snorted into her drink. Manage investments. It sounded vague, safe, suspiciously polished. Her father nodded approvingly. Good, good. Stability is important. Then, lowering his voice just enough for Maya to hear. Finally, someone with a real job. Ethan didn't react, just smiled politely, but Maya saw the corner of his mouth twitch, like he was fighting a laugh. Dinner moved quickly after that. Plates of roasted chicken, chatter bouncing across the table, her mother asking a million questions about how they met. Ethan answered every one. Perfectly. "We met by accident," he said with a small grin. "Literally. She ran into me." Her family laughed, and Maya's face turned crimson. "Classic Maya," her sister teased, "still bumping into strangers." "Not just any stranger," Ethan said softly, looking right at her. "I was lucky." Something fluttered in Maya's chest, sharp and unexpected. It was supposed to be an act, all of it, but the way he looked at her, calm and steady, it didn't feel like pretending anymore. Her ex arrived halfway through dinner. Ryan, polished, smug, his arm wrapped around a woman dripping in diamonds. The second he saw Maya, his smile faltered. "Well, look who's here," he said, voice sweetly toxic. "Maya, you look surprised." She forced a tight smile. "Not as surprised as I am to see you here early." Ryan's gaze slid toward Ethan, assessing him. "And who's this?" Ethan didn't hesitate. He stood, buttoning his jacket with quiet confidence. "Ethan Cole," he said, shaking Ryan's hand with just the right amount of pressure. "Maya's boyfriend." The room stilled. Her mother beamed. Her sister giggled. Her father looked impressed. "Ryan, oh," he said with a smirk. "Didn't know you were seeing anyone new so soon." "Life moves fast," Maya said, sipping her wine to hide her shaking hands. Ryan leaned closer, his tone smug. "You two must be serious then." Ethan's voice was calm, but it had an edge. "Serious enough." Maya turned her head to hide a smile. For the first time in months, she wasn't the one being pitted. Ryan's confidence wavered. He laughed brittle. "Well, good for you, Maya." Ethan rested his hand lightly over hers on the table, just enough to make the lie feel real. His thumb brushed her knuckles. Warm, grounding, and somehow her pulse steadied. As dessert came and conversation shifted, Maya caught herself watching him. The way he listened when her father spoke. The quiet nods. The subtle kindness when her little cousin spilled juice. And Ethan just smiled and helped clean it up without a word. He didn't act like someone pretending. He acted like he belonged there. When the music started, a slow instrumental from the band near the corner, her mother clapped her hands. "Oh, a dance! Go on, you too." Maya shook her head. No, I don't dance." But Ethan was already standing, offering his hand again. "I'll make sure you don't trip," he said gently. She laughed nervously. "That's a big promise." "Then let me keep it." He led her to the small dance floor. The light softened. Her hand fit in as like it had been there before. "You're good at this," she murmured as they swayed. He glanced down at her. "At pretending? At making people believe you're not." A flicker of something crossed his face, something unreadable, almost sad. "Do I look like someone who doesn't know how to pretend?" he asked quietly. She didn't answer, because in that moment, with the world spinning softly around them, she wasn't sure she wanted him to pretend anymore. When the music stopped, he didn't let go right away, just lingered, long enough for her to notice that his heartbeat matched hers. Back at the table, Ryan avoided her gaze. Her parents chatted happily, and Maya sat there, wondering what on earth she had just gotten herself into. It started as a lie, a desperate, stupid lie, but somehow it was starting to feel dangerously real. Dinner was almost over. The room glowed with soft amber light, laughter weaving between the clinking of glasses. For the first time that night, Maya let herself breathe. Maybe she'd pulled it off. Maybe this ridiculous plan, the fake boyfriend, the act, the pretending, had actually worked. Ethan sat beside her, calm and grounded, his jacket folded neatly on the back of his chair. He listened while her father told old stories, the kind where everyone else rolled their eyes but smiled anyway. He laughed at the right moments, asked questions that sounded sincere. He even helped her mom serve dessert when the waiter forgot. It was so easy, too easy. Maya stole a glance at him as her family chatted around them. His sleeves were rolled up now, showing a watch that looked older than both of them combined. There was something about him, something polished, but not showy, controlled, like a man who'd learned how to hide in plain sight. He caught her staring. "What?" he said softly, eyes glinting. "Nothing," she said quickly. "I'm just impressed." "By what?" "How good you are at this." He leaned in slightly. "Maybe I've had practice." The words were teasing, but they lingered in the air, just long enough to make her wonder what he meant. Before she could ask, her father clinked his glass. "Maya," he said proudly, "you should tell Ethan about your project." Her heart lifted. "Oh, the design competition?" "Yes," her father said, beaming. "Our girl's planning to start her own architecture firm one day. She's already doing side projects after hours." Maya's face flushed with pride. "It's small stuff, nothing huge yet." "Dreams always start small," Ethan said, and there was something genuine in his voice, something that made her chest tighten a little. He asked her questions about her designs, her inspirations, her goals, and he listened like every word mattered. Her family noticed. Even her usually unimpressed sister whispered to their mom, "He's a keeper." And for one fleeting moment, Maya almost believed it. Then her uncle, lawyer, skeptic, professional conversation ruiner, looked up from his wine glass. "So, Ethan," he said casually, "you said your last name was Cole, right?" Ethan paused for a fraction of a second. "That's right." "Cole, as in Cole Industries?" The words dropped like a stone in water. The air shifted. Conversations trailed off. Maya blinked, confused. "Cole Industries?" Her uncle leaned back in his chair. "You haven't heard of them, Maya? They're practically everywhere now, construction, tech, investments. They just bought out Haverford Design Group last year." Her stomach twisted. Haverford Design Group, the small architecture firm where she'd trained, where her mentor had worked before it shut down. Shut down after a buyout. Her voice was quiet. "That was your company?" Ethan's eyes didn't flinch. "Yes." Her father frowned. "You're that Ethan Cole?" Ethan nodded once. "I am." Maya felt something inside her crack. "You own Cole Industries?" "I run it," he corrected softly. Her father set down his fork, the clink echoing too loudly. "The same company that's been swallowing small businesses across the city?" "Mergers," Ethan said carefully. "Not all of them are hostile." Her uncle scoffed. "Tell that to the dozens of contractors who lost their jobs last year." Ethan didn't defend himself, didn't argue. He just looked at Maya. And that hurt more than any answer he could have given. She pushed back on the table, the chair scraping loudly. "Excuse me," she said, her voice shaking. "I need some air." Outside, the night hit her like a wave, sharp and cold. The city lights blurred, gold and blue. She leaned against the railing, her breath clouding in front of her. Footsteps followed. Slow, steady. "Maya," Ethan said quietly, She didn't turn around. Why didn't you tell me? You never asked. She spun to face him. That's not an answer. You knew who you were, and you let me drag you into my family's dinner like some stranger from the street. He exhaled long and tired. Because tonight wasn't about who I am. Then what was it about? He hesitated. It was about you. Don't, she said sharply, shaking her head. Don't do that. Don't act like this was some noble thing. You lied, Ethan. I didn't lie, he said, his tone low but firm. I just didn't correct your assumption. She laughed bitterly. Oh, that's rich. Do you always play word games, or is that part of your CEO training? He flinched, just slightly. You think I enjoy that title? That name? Do you? She snapped. Because to people like me, that name means the end of everything we've worked for. My mentor lost his job because of your company. The firm I wanted to join doesn't even exist anymore. You erased it. He went quiet. Was this some kind of game to you? She asked. Playing the charming stranger? Pretending to care? No, he said, and for the first time, his voice wasn't calm, it was raw. That's not what this is. Then what is it? She whispered. He looked at her for a long moment, his jaw tense, his eyes searching hers. I said yes, he said finally, because you looked like you were about to drown. Her breath hitched. He stepped closer, careful, like he was afraid she'd run. And maybe I wanted to remember what it felt like, saving someone instead of destroying something. The night wind moved through her hair, sharp and cold. She didn't know what to say. The man who'd been steady and unshakable all night suddenly looked human. Ethan, she said softly, you can't just fix what you've done by being nice for one night. I know, he murmured, but I can try to be different tomorrow. She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to. But her chest ached with all the years of trying to build something while people like him tore it down. Go back inside, she said finally. They'll notice you're gone. He nodded slowly. You won't come back? She shook her head. Not tonight. He studied her face for a long moment, then turned to leave. But before he walked away, he said quietly, for what it's worth, I never pretended about you. The door closed behind him, leaving her alone with the city noise and the echo of his words. And for the first time that night, the lie didn't feel like the worst part. The truth did. The night air had gone colder. Maya stayed outside long after Ethan left, staring out at the city lights like they might give her answers. They didn't. They just shimmered and blinked, indifferent to the way her chest ached. Inside the restaurant, laughter drifted faintly through the glass doors, but out here it was just her, the sound of passing cars, and the heaviness of knowing she trusted the wrong person again. She hugged her arms around herself. What was I thinking? She whispered. A stranger, a complete stranger. A door opened behind her. She didn't turn. Maya, Ethan's voice said softly. She closed her eyes. You don't give up easily, do you? Not when it matters. Then you must think this does. I do. She turned slowly, folding her arms. Why? Why me? You could have walked away. You should have. He didn't answer right away. His eyes looked darker out here, more human. The streetlight caught the edge of his jaw, the crease between his brows. Because you reminded me of something, he said finally. Of what? Of before. Before what, Ethan? Before you started buying people's lives and calling it business. He didn't flinch. Before I forgot why I wanted to build anything at all. She frowned, confused, but he reached into his jacket pocket, pulling out something small, an old, weathered business card. Its edges were bent, smudged, the ink barely visible. He held it out to her. She hesitated. What is this? Your card, he said quietly. She blinked, shaking her head. That's not possible. I don't. 5 years ago, he interrupted gently, at a job fair. It was raining. Everyone else had gone home, but you stayed. She stared at him, trying to place a memory, and a faint flash surfaced, a younger version of herself, handing out resumes to people who didn't bother looking up, drenched but determined. You were there? She asked, almost a whisper. I was standing in line, waiting to get in, he said, soaked, broke, and ready to give up. I didn't even make it to booth before security closed the gates. But you, he smiled faintly, remembering. You came out with an umbrella. You handed it to me and said, don't give up on your dream, even if no one believes in it yet. Her breath caught. I didn't know your name then, he went on, voice quiet but steady. But I kept the card. It was the only thing that made me feel like I could still become someone. She looked down at the card in her hand. Her handwriting, her name, her old email address from when she couldn't even afford her own domain. The paper trembled between her fingers. Why tell me now? She asked, her voice cracking. He took a slow breath. Because when I saw you today, standing in the street, panicking, still fighting like the world hadn't beaten out of you, I remembered that moment. You gave me hope once. Tonight was my chance to give it back. Her throat tightened. Ethan, she began, but her voice failed her. I said yes because I owed you, he continued. Not money, not favors, but something real. You reminded me what it was like to believe again. I didn't know I'd hurt your world when I built mine, Maya. I didn't know who you were until tonight. You expect me to believe that, she whispered. No, he said simply. I just needed you to know the truth. The wind lifted her hair slightly. Neither of them spoke for a long moment. Maya stared at the ground, her fingers tightening around the card. You could have told me, she said finally, when we met. I could have, he agreed, but you didn't need a CEO. You needed someone to stand beside you. That's all I wanted to be. Her eyes met his, searching for a lie, a performance, something false to hold against him. But there was none, just quiet sincerity. I don't know what to do with this, she whispered. Don't do anything, he said. You don't owe me forgiveness. Just don't hate me for saying yes. The words hit deeper than she expected. I don't hate you, she said softly. I just don't know who you are anymore. He nodded once, stepping back. Fair. He hesitated before turning away, his voice low. For what it's worth, the reason I built Coal Industries wasn't to destroy people's dreams. It was because I didn't want to depend on anyone else to keep mine alive. Somewhere along the way, I forgot what that dream was. Until tonight. She watched him walk toward the valet stand, his figure framed by the glow of city lights. He stopped just before getting into the car. Keep the card, he said, glancing over his shoulder. Maybe it'll remind you too. Then he was gone. Maya stood there, clutching the faded card in her palm until the ink smudged against her skin. The same hand that had given it away years ago now held it again, returned by the last person she ever expected. The rain started then, soft at first, then steady. She tilted her face up to the sky, letting it wash over her. Maybe some stories didn't start with love. Maybe they started with a favor, a moment of kindness that neither of them had understood. Until now. She tucked the card into her pocket, whispering into the rain. I didn't save you, Ethan. You just remembered who you were. And for the first time in a long while, she didn't feel angry anymore. She just felt awake. The rain didn't stop that night. It streaked silver across her window, soft and relentless, making the city hum quietly. Maya sat on the couch, still in her dinner dress, the card Ethan had given her lying on the table. Sleep wouldn't come. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw him. Not the polished, charming so, but the real, unguarded version she glimpsed that evening. A knock came after midnight. 3 hesitant taps. She froze, then opened the door to find him drenched, hair plastered his forehead, shirt clinging to him. You're out of your mind, she whispered. I had to come, he said, breathless. If I waited till morning, you wouldn't have opened the door. She stepped aside, letting him in, handing him a towel. Silence stretched. Why are you here? She asked. Because I realized something after you left tonight, he said. I've spent my life hiding behind titles, success, control. I thought it would protect me. But walls keep out everything, not just pain. She stayed guarded, but his next words pierced through. When I said yes to pretending to be your boyfriend, it was a way to see who I could be without the mask. And I found someone who didn't hate himself as much when you were around. Her chest tightened. You shouldn't say things like that. Why not? Because I don't know what to do with them. You don't have to do anything, he said softly. The rain drummed against the windows. Finally, she faced him. You hurt people, Ethan. Maybe not on purpose, but you did. I know. I can't undo it, he said, voice steady. But I can change what comes next. I've already started. I stepped back from projects, reconsidered actions that could hurt others. And tonight, I realize I care more about what you think of me than they do. Something inside her cracked. You can't just rewrite everything overnight. I'm not trying. I just don't want to pretend anymore. Her pulse quickened. What do you want from me? A chance to prove I'm not just a man who broke things. Maybe the one who can rebuild them. With you, he said. She shook her head. You can't fix me, Ethan. I'm not here to fix you. I just don't want you to walk alone anymore. The words pierced her defenses. She looked at him, really looked, and saw the man beneath the armor just as he saw her beneath hers. I don't know if I can trust you, she admitted. I'll wait until you can, he said simply. The rain softened. They sat together, shoulders brushing, no words needed, just quiet. When he finally left, the world was washed clean and something real lingered between them, fragile, human, and entirely theirs. Morning light slipped through gray clouds, brushing softly across Maya's apartment. The rain had stopped hours ago, but the world still smelled clean and new. She sat at her kitchen table, coffee untouched. Ethan's words from the night before echoing in her mind. I just don't want you to walk alone anymore. Her phone buzzed. A message. Check your front door. Hesitant, she opened it and found a small rain-speckled envelope. Inside lay a key and a note. You gave me something once, a reason not to quit. The key is to a studio on River Street. It's yours. No contracts, no hidden favors, just space to build something that's yours. Maya sank into the chair, heart pounding. It wasn't an expensive gift or a grand gesture. It was a memory, a recognition of her dreams, a reminder that someone had seen her when she no longer saw herself. Later, she stood before the old brick studio. She turned the key, and sunlight poured through dusty windows. On a single table lay her old blueprint, retitled Rebuild. A small note beside it read, You gave me a future when I had nothing. I just wanted to return the favor. Build it, Maya. Tears blurred her vision as she picked up a pencil. For the first time in years, the spark inside her returned. Line by line, imperfect and raw, her dream began to take shape. IT wasn't the key or the studio that mattered. It was a faith Ethan reminded her she still had, the gift she'd been missing all along. The sun was sinking when she saw him again. Weeks had passed since the letter, since the key, since that quiet moment where everything inside her began to shift. The studio on River Street had become her world. Every morning she unlocked the door, breathed in the scent of sawdust and coffee, and started again. Her sketches filled the walls. Crooked lines, wild ideas, pieces of a dream that no longer felt impossible. She'd found her rhythm again. Her peace. Or at least, something close to it. But every night, when the city softened and the hum of traffic faded, her mind went back to him. The man who had walked into her chaos and quietly changed its shape. She didn't know if she'd ever see him again. He hadn't written. He hadn't called. And maybe that was fair. Maybe he'd given her what she needed. Not a promise, but a beginning. Still, every time she passed a black car on the street or heard a low voice that sounded almost like his, her chest tightened. Just a little. It was late one evening when it happened. She was sitting on the studio floor, surrounded by blueprints, a half-finished model, and the warm hum of her favorite old record. The door creaked open behind her, quiet but certain. She turned and froze. Ethan stood there, framed in the soft glow of sunset, wearing the same tired smile she'd seen the night of the rain. No suit this time. No mask. Just him. Her breath caught. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then he said softly, You left the light on. She blinked. I what? The first night I walked by, the lights were off. The second night, they were on. I figured maybe that was your way of saying you weren't done yet. Her lips parted, a small laugh escaping. You've been walking by? Every night. Didn't want to interrupt. Just wanted to see if you were still building. She stood, brushing dust from her jeans. And now I couldn't stay outside anymore. The room went quiet again, except for the faint music in the background, a soft, trembling piano. He looked around at her sketches, her models, the scattered papers. This place, he said quietly, it feels alive. It is, she said, her voice softening. It's me? He nodded, his eyes never leaving hers. I hoped it would be. Something heavy loosened in her chest. She took a slow breath. You kept your promise. He smiled faintly. I told you I'd try. She studied him, the same man who once represented everything she resented. And yet now, standing there, he looked nothing like the villain she'd built in her head. There was warmth in his eyes. Regret, too. But most of all, there was peace. He walked closer. You know, I thought I was giving you a gift that night. The studio, the space, but it turns out I was wrong. Wrong. You were the gift. You reminded me what it's like to care about something for no reason other than that it matters. Her throat tightened. Ethan, I spent years building an empire, so no one could hurt me. And then I met you, and you did without even trying. And somehow, I'm grateful for it. Her eyes glistened. You don't mean that. I do. Because if being broken was the only way to find you, then I'd do it all again. Something inside her broke and healed all at once. She stepped closer until she could feel his breath. You're not who I thought you were, she whispered. Neither are you, he smiled. I was angry for so long. She laughed through tears. I know. I didn't want to forgive you. I know that too. But somewhere along the way, I think I did. He exhaled slowly. Maya, I'm not asking for anything. Not forgiveness, not a second chance. I just needed you to know that you changed me. Her heart ached. You really mean that? Every word. The music swelled. She reached out and took his hand. For a moment, they just stood there, surrounded by the world they'd rebuilt, piece by piece from ruin, regret, and something that almost felt like love. You know what's funny? She asked softly. What? When I met you, you were a lie. And now you're the truth I never saw coming. He brushed a thumb across her cheek, wiping away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. You found me. No, Ethan, you found yourself. I just happened to be there when you did. Outside, the sun dipped below the skyline, turning the city gold. Inside, the light fell across them. Two people standing in the wreckage and wonder at what they built from nothing. So what now? She whispered. Now we build something real. Together? Forever, he said simply. And in that quiet, all the lies had fallen away, leaving only truth. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to Heartfelt Tales TV for more stories that touch the soul.